Right now,
Today
53.
we'll tackle tough times in California.
Economic troubles facing San Diego will be the focus of Mayor Jerry Sanders' annual State of the City
reports
address.
a 60% hike in rapes where either one or both people.
Process. UCLA researchers track the progress of 50 sarcoma patients using
From the KPBS studios, this is San Diego Week.
Hello, I'm Joanne Ferrian. Thanks for joining us.
For the third time in a month, San Diego police are mourning a fallen officer. What impact are the losses having on the force? Could your child's school be unsafe in an earthquake? Hundreds of buildings across the county were flagged for risks a decade ago, and not much has happened since then. And do you remember the awesome 80s? San Diego's Lambs Players Theater celebrates the days when there was U2 and Blondie, and music still on MTV.
That's all coming up on San Diego Week, but first, the headlines. Amitha Sharma joins me from the KPBS News Center. Amitha?
Joanne, thousands gathered at a Point Loma church today to pay final respects to a fallen San Diego police officer.
Summer's gone and all the roses falling. 'Tis you must go and I must hide. But come ye back when summer's in the
36-year-old Jeremy Henwood was honored by officers from throughout the state, along with Governor Jerry Brown and other elected officials. Henwood was shot to death in City Heights last Saturday by a man whom police describe as suicidal. Today, the 4-year veteran of the police force was remembered as a dedicated officer who tried to do good in the community.
For all of us that have been touched by him, every good deed that we do in the rest of our lives is to his credit. I'm proud to have known Jeremy, and I'm proud that he was my brother.
The man who killed Henwood, Dejon White, was himself shot and killed by police. Henwood was a veteran of 3 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Today, he was given a posthumous promotion from Marine Corps captain to major. 2 Marines from Miramar are still in the hospital after their fighter jet crashed into the Pacific. They spent 4 hours in the water before a Coast Guard helicopter plucked them out of the ocean early Thursday morning. The Marines were flying about 85 miles southwest of San Diego when their FA-18 Hornet crashed. The Marine Corps is now investigating. Governor Brown is taking a second look at a controversial wildfire fee in the state budget. It's $150 a year for people in rural areas. Under current law, that money can only be used for fire prevention, and it would be subtracted from CAL FIRE's budget to fight fires. The governor is planning to amend that rule when the state legislature goes back to work next week. GPS technology will soon be added to San Diego County railroad tracks. Caltrans says the new system will be able to stop trains that are on a collision course. The North County Transit District is getting $50 million in grants from the state and federal governments to put the system on the tracks from San Diego up to San Onofre. An old lifeguard station on South Mission Beach will be history soon. The California Coastal Commission has approved plans to tear down the old building near the jetty. It will be replaced with an upgraded 3-story, 3,000-square-foot lifeguard station. And demolition crews have finished up their work on San Diego State's old Aztec Center. The metal and concrete from the old building are getting hauled away for recycling. The foundation for the new, larger Aztec Center is scheduled to be laid in October. The new building is expected to be finished in 2013. Keepers at SeaWorld are taking care of some brown pelicans that wound up a long way from the ocean. 8 young birds were blown all the way to Arizona by monsoonal winds. One had to be euthanized because of its injuries, but the others are recovering and are expected to be set free next week. Back to you, Joanne.
These are difficult times for the San Diego Police Department. As Amitha just told you, Jeremy Henwood is the third officer the force has buried in a month. The department is now calling his murder an assassination. And just last week, motor officer David Hall took his own life, and child abuse detective Donna Williams was stabbed to death in mid-July. To cope, officers are getting help from an employee assistance program, a department psychiatrist, and 20 chaplains. Earlier this week, I spoke with Assistant Chief of Police Boyd Long about how the department is handling the loss and whether Officer Henwood's death would change the way the public and police interact. Here's some of our conversation.
It was the public that came to Jeremy Henwood's aid. It was the people that were driving behind his police car that unfortunately witnessed him get shot, that actually went up to that car and were the first to render aid. One of them actually got on the police radio and broadcast on the police radio for other officers to come to his aid. So it was the public that helped us in this incident. I couldn't ask for better than that. Those people are heroes just for stopping and helping a San Diego police officer. And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of people out there just like them in the public that would have done the same thing.
Did you know Officer Henwood?
I did. Jeremy was a 4-year veteran of our department. Not only was a great San Diego police officer, but he was also a captain in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. He had just gotten back from Afghanistan. I knew of his name, and I had talked about him with his commanding officer before he left for the military, but I didn't really get a chance to know of him until he returned in May of this year. And part of the process when anyone returns from military leave is they come through a series of interviews. One is with me. I spent about 45 minutes or so with him. Kind of had a good conversation about what happened when he was in Afghanistan, but I can tell you he was so excited to be back. You could just see a glow in him being able to pin this badge back on and go out and provide a service to the community.
Chief Long says in his 27 years on the force, this has been the worst week. The department is also reeling from a string of complaints made against officers in the past year. Well, this has also been a deadly week for the U.S. military in Afghanistan. 30 Americans were killed when their helicopter was shot down. Many were Navy SEALs. And 2 Camp Pendleton Marines were killed on Sunday while fighting in Helmand Province. These losses come as we move closer to the 10-year anniversary of 9/11, the catastrophic event which eventually led our nation to war. As that anniversary approaches, KPBS is asking viewers a series of questions about war and 9/11. This week, we visited a farmer's market in Oceanside where we asked market goers the following question. Many critics say the human cost of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan was borne by just a few. Should there be a national service requirement for all young Americans? Now, here are some of the answers that we got.
Involuntary draft, no, I don't agree with that. I have 3 sons, and I wouldn't want them to be involuntary or voluntarily, put overseas and into a war. No, yeah, I would not agree with that.
I was in the military quite young, and it made me grow up and learn to live on my own and get away from my parents. And with the job market the way it is right now, it's probably a good thing that more kids join the military if they can.
No, I don't think so. I think we have more than enough active military right now, especially with the way that the economy is. We have lines out the door and stuff like that for the recruiting station. I know it took myself 3 years just to get into the Marine Corps.
As a family of Marines, and my daughter was in the Army, I am very big on serving your country, male and female alike. I don't think that there should be any mandatory sign up when you're 18 if you're male versus female. I think it should be everyone. And this is why we're here. This is why we're Americans, and we should fight for what we believe in.
I believe the war, or participating in the war, should be a freedom of choice. Some people might agree with it and some people might not. And if we make it obligatory, then we're going to have a lot of people that don't necessarily agree with it end up fighting in the war. And that wouldn't be fair in my eyes.
If we're going to go into war, then yes, I believe so. Because we will need all the help we can get from everybody.
You could argue that our freedom comes at a price, but at the same time, we'll let people freely choose that price. And if all of a sudden their country is being invaded, then they understand that they freely chose the decision to allow that to happen. And so I think that, the government enforcing of freedom is actually not so much freedom at all.
I have always been a big proponent of serving your country in some way or another. I don't necessarily think that it means a draft, but I think some kind of mandatory civil service would be good for everybody.
Like in Israel? No, I think it should always be a choice. Absolutely. You should never be forced to die.
We'd like to know what you think. Should there be a draft? If you follow us on Facebook, you can comment there or send me an email. jfaryon@kpbs.org. That's jfaryon@kpbs.org. As parents get ready to send their kids back to school later this month, they may want to ask their principal just how safe their school is in the event of an earthquake. Hundreds of schools in San Diego County have been flagged as potentially dangerous in an earthquake. The list of schools was compiled 10 years ago, but an investigation by KPBS and voiceofsandiego.org found that little has been done to address those safety concerns. I visited one of the schools on the list with KPBS reporter Kyla Calvert, who's been working on this story for the past several weeks.
Kyla, we're at Alexander Hamilton School. It's a school in the San Diego Unified School District. How does a school like this make it on a list of potentially dangerous buildings?
All it takes is the fact that there are buildings on this campus that were built between 1950 and 1978. And in 1978, there were major upgrades made to the building code that related to seismic safety. And so in 1999, the legislature passed a law telling the agency that oversees school construction to review buildings built during that period to see if they lived up to the standards that were built into those 1978 code upgrades. And they reviewed the plans that they had on file and separated those buildings into two categories. The first category was likely to perform well in major earthquakes, and that was around 2,000 buildings fell into that category. And the second category was buildings that it was unknown if they would live up to those standards, and that was about 7,500 buildings across the state. And that was just based on the type of construction.
So here in San Diego County, how many buildings do we have in those categories?
It's about 320 fell into the unknown safety category.
What happened with this list and what happened with all of these buildings?
Well, it's been very spotty, and in some instances, very little has happened. San Diego Unified actually just recently reviewed this building as part of its final round of inspections of its 90 buildings that were in that unknown safety category. But it's just one of 4 districts in the county where there are about 2 dozen districts in the county that have buildings on the list, and it's one of just 4 that's actually inspected all of its buildings that were listed in that category.
So your story is really focused on the school districts who haven't inspected buildings. So when you went out to speak with them, what did they tell you in terms of why they never got around to doing it?
They told us a lot of different things, actually. One thing that we heard a lot was that there's not money now to do these inspections and possible retrofits. The state initially estimated that it would cost about $4.5 billion to do all of the inspections and mitigation that would be needed on the unknown safety buildings. And the state made about $200 million available in 2006. So that's less than 5% of that estimated cost. So the state hasn't made funds available for school districts to do this work. But at the same time, several have passed construction bonds. There was the housing boom in the early 2000s. They could have taken advantage of those increased property taxes to do that work. Another thing that we've heard, and we heard it from the superintendent in Carlsbad, was that the state just never made clear that this was something that needed to get done.
We did construction in here and submitted plans to DSA. So if in fact DSA had issues with the safety of any of our buildings, they had the opportunity when we were asking for approval to do the construction. They could have said, oh, you need to add bolts, you need to do a study. None of that ever came through.
In your research, the school districts that did actually inspect their buildings, did they find any of them that really weren't safe, or did they all sort of get the passing grade?
Certainly they did. Some were indeed safe, and some needed retrofits. One in the Grossmont High School District, they had to vacate that building because they deemed that it was so unsafe.
So for parents at home right now, they want to know whether or not their school was inspected or whether or not their school is safe. What do they do? Where do they go to find out?
They can go to our website, kpbs.org. We have a map there of the 320-some buildings that were on the list in San Diego County, and we've updated their status to the best of our knowledge. We did a lot of records requests and found out which ones were inspected, which ones weren't, which have been demolished. And so after that, they can go to their school district administrators and ask that something be done if their school buildings haven't been inspected.
KPBS reporter Kyla Calvert, thanks a lot for doing this. Great story.
Thank you.
You can also see the entire series of stories on this issue produced by Kyla and our media partner voiceofsandiego.org by going to our website. That's kpbs.org. A new research lab in La Jolla could accelerate the search for the genetic cause of diseases such as cancer and autoimmune disorders. KPBS science and technology reporter Peggy Pico is in the news center with more on what makes this facility so special. Peggy?
Joanne, I first reported on this unique facility last October when the La Jolla Institute for Allergy and Immunology received a $12.5 million grant from the National Institutes of Health for this project. They call it the RNAi Center. There are only about a handful of labs like this in the world, and of course, this is the first one in San Diego.
Peggy, we hear a lot about DNA sequencing. What is RNA, and why is it important in genetic research?
Well, RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. Now, to visualize this, you can think of those Russian stacking nesting dolls. They're, the first one is big, and that's our DNA. That would be our gene. And then inside of that one would be the RNA, a little bit smaller. And that one, in turn, makes even the smaller one the proteins. And those proteins are what controls what happens inside of our cells, inside of our body. Now, scientists believe if they can figure out how those proteins control cells, they could change the control signals of those cells when they go wrong, for example, in rapid growth of a tumor or cancer cell.
So, Peggy, you've explained RNA, but there's an I in the title of this research facility. What does that stand for?
That's very important, Joanne. It's based on a Nobel Prize-winning technology. At the RNAi Center, the I stands for interface. That's because researchers want to know how the RNA is actually interfacing with a normal or diseased cell. Now, Mitchell Cronenberg is the president and chief science officer at the center. I talked to him just days before the center officially opened this week. He calls interface research a subtraction process and explains it with this car analogy.
You know all the parts in your car, but you don't know what they do. So what you might do to understand that is you might take out a spark plug, a tire, a light bulb, a wire, and then turn on the car, ask, does the car run, does it turn, do the lights go on, and so on. You can understand what each part does by removing them one at a time and asking how the function is affected. And that's what we're doing with RNA interference, taking out one gene at a time with specific targeting molecules and asking how does it affect the behavior of a cell, some process, something that might contribute to a disease.
Peggy, research like this typically takes years to do, but not at this center. Why is that?
Well, that's right, because scientists at the RNAi Center say what used to take years will now be done in months thanks to computerized equipment. You're seeing that right now. Now, this is somebody pulling out something from the ice-cold freezer there, but they have actually got this computerized equipment you're looking at here. Those plastic trays you're looking at holds about 340 samples at a time. That means this machine can test many, many samples with 100% accuracy all at once. And basically that means hundreds, if not thousands, of genetic experiments could be done simultaneously. With 26,000 complex genes in the human genome, anything that speeds up the sorting process is a great big help.
KPBS reporter Peggy Pico, thanks for that. Well, the Chargers lost in their first preseason game last night to the Seattle Seahawks. And while the office chatter this weekend may be about yesterday's game, something else is on the minds of fans these days. Will the team stay in San Diego or be wooed away to Los Angeles? Joining me now to talk about all the speculation is Jay Paris, sports columnist for the North County Times. Jay, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good.
So, what happened in Los Angeles this week that may lead the Chargers a little bit closer to moving north?
Well, the snowball up in L.A. really keeps going downhill. And Tuesday, the L.A. City Council voted unanimously 12-0 to get into a memorandum of understanding with AEG as far as the Farmers Field and the NFL Stadium complex at L.A. Live going forward. And that really presented a unified voice and unified front to the NFL, because LA's been down this road before, but there's always been different factions and different personalities and different business interests wanting to put the stadium in their place. Here they all came together to say, here's where we want it, right next to the Staples Center where the Lakers and Kings play, right in the heart of this LA Live entertainment sports complex, which I don't know if you've been up there or not. It is very impressive. You know, they got the bells and whistles and the bars and restaurants. And
they've got money too. Don't they have money committed to this project?
That's the biggest difference. The San Diego proposal down by East Village, adjacent to Petco Park, it would need quite a bit of public money, or money from somewhere. And whereas up in there, AEG's chairman, Philip Anschutz, you know, he's going to write the check. Now, there's always public money involved, and you're ignorant if you're thinking otherwise. But for the most part, he wants to build that stadium there, and he's going to put his ATM card at risk and put it on the line. And it's not that he's a grand NFL fan or anything, but you know, let's be clear, they have thousands of condominiums, which is all part of that LA Live complex, and they need to sell those things. And if they can, you know, use the NFL as a vehicle to get there, they'll ride along shotgun with the NFL any day.
So bring us up to date then with the San Diego talk of a stadium. There was money, redevelopment, that went away. Where do we stand right now?
They're trying to bridge those gaps. And the new labor agreement with the NFL, you know, gave some money toward the California cities, because there's not many cities that have trouble building stadiums, but they're all in California, it seems like. Oakland, San Francisco, and San Diego. So the new labor agreement, you know, carved out a little money for that. And San Diego, they're saying it's their last best shot here in East Village. And really, they're taking a page from LA Live. I mean, they want to do the same thing down in San Diego, hook it up with a convention center, make it a stadium, entertainment. And I think the key, what they have to sell here, and it's going to be a difficult sell, is that this isn't a stadium for the ultra-wealthy Spanos family, which owns the Chargers. And that's where people, that gets their hackles up.
So what do you mean by that? What kind of stadium would it be?
If they can sell it as the Chargers will play there, so will San Diego State. It's going to have a soft, retractable roof, and maybe we can get Final Fours, and the Super Bowl as well, and the concerts here, and the motocross, and the concerts, and the rodeo, or whatever, you know. But, you know, the Spanos family, their name in town is, people are a little hesitant. You know, it goes back to the ticket guarantee, you know, when they gave $35 million, they charged the city, and it goes back to when they redid Qualcomm Stadium. It was sold as, once we do this, you know, refurbish, it will be a state-of-the-art facility.
And we're going to have to end there, but we're going to have you back definitely to hear more about this, because I'm sure this story is ongoing. Thank you so much, Jay Paris, for being here.
Appreciate it.
One of the most successful plays in San Diego right now is a musical time capsule back to the 1980s. It's called Mixtape, and as of today, it's been on stage for an entire year. Arts reporter Angela Carone says Mixtape has San Diegans dressing in neon and spandex to sing along with the past.
This group of friends is celebrating a girls' night out.
We were saying that, you know, as soon as we get in, we're going to be like, we love this song. Oh, wait, we love this song. Yeah. You know, get up, dance. So we had to come, girls' night.
They've come to a theater in downtown San Diego to see Lamb's Players' hit musical Mixtape. It's now the longest-running play in Lamb's history, and its success can be attributed to fans like these. Mixtape is one long medley of songs, close to 120 in all. Leonard Patton has been performing in Mixtape from the very beginning.
It's a crazy, wild, fun journey through the 80s, exploring all the music of all different styles. It explores things like cartoons.
Thunder, 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 thunder. Cats. Thundercats.
TV themes.
Turn around. I see the girl who turns my world around.
Some of the things that commercials and things that were so identifiable with the 80s, like MTV and things like that.
Is that a mixtape?
Hold on.
I haven't seen one of these in ages.
A mixtape, that is so 80s.
That
takes me back.
You sat by the radio and you would record for hours when songs came on the radio. And that's what I did. And so everybody had mixtapes for every single occasion, for their boyfriend, girlfriend, for their friends going on road trips.
Mixtape has struck a chord with audiences, some of whom return to see it over and over again.
Everybody has their genre that they started listening to when they were younger. After their parents manipulated them with their music, you know, then they found their own, and that's why I think it stays with everybody.
Another indication that audiences are transported, they sing along with the cast throughout the play.
I remember the first night it happened, and it just takes a couple, and as soon as a couple people start to sing, then more join in, and then they're all back in the 80s. And I remember I was singing a Madonna tune, and I couldn't even hear myself sing. The audience was singing for me. I probably could have stopped singing, and they would have finished the song.
Let's get physical, physical.
Of course, no tribute to the 80s would be complete without neon colors and rubber bracelets, side ponytails, and shoulder-bearing sweatshirts. Audiences have joined in by showing up in 80s garb, ready to take a musical trip back in time.
It's mostly just stuff I had in my closet that I knew if I put it together, something would come out. So I guess I've always had a little 80s in me, so it was in there. It just had to come out.
And who doesn't have a little 80s in them? That was arts reporter Angela Carone. Mixtape has been extended for the 5th time. It runs through November 5th at Lambs Players Horton Grand Theater. Well, you can see any of the stories on tonight's show by going to our website at kpbs.org/SDweek. And now we'll leave you with a look at our weekend weather forecast. Thanks for watching. Good night.